Hello, everybody. Very glad that you are with me today. And what we're going to do is just wait a little while for people who are coming in. We're going to spend about 15 minutes today outlining how I approach college admissions, how we approach college admissions at Anjali Education Consultants with specific examples. And for the rest of the time, we're going to answer your questions. So just a few more minutes, a few more seconds before getting started. And great. So my name is Anjali Maazel. I'm a former Princeton University interviewer, TED Talk speaker, and college admissions expert. I'm also the very proud mom of a thriving 26-year-old now in grad school. At Anjali Education Consultants, we have helped hundreds of students to get into their top perfect match schools, including schools like Yale and Stanford, Johns Hopkins and Vanderbilt, Swarthmore, and UT Austin, to name a few. I'm very glad to be with you today. And I know that many of you are here because you can clearly see that applying to college has become much more challenging. Many of you are probably feeling some combination of excitement and anxiety. So first, let me begin by just acknowledging that I truly understand these feelings as a parent and as a professional. By the end of this talk today, after I outline the specific challenges and solutions, I think you'll feel not only much more clear and in control of this process, but also confident and aligned with what you truly want. So I'd like to start by telling you a story. I grew up in New York City and went to an extremely competitive high school. Just to give you an idea, I would come home and have about 5 or 6 hours of homework every night. I really felt oppressed by it all, and I did well despite this, but I couldn't wait to get out of there and go to college. And my senior year in high school was truly bizarre. My classmates and their parents got together and offered me cash to withdraw my applications after I was admitted early action to Yale. Of course, apart from the unsettling feeling that gave me, I had not decided if I really wanted to go to that school. I wanted to see what other options opened up for me in the spring. And as it turned out, I ended up going not to Yale, but to Princeton instead. But this experience really left me feeling uncomfortable. And so when planning my own son's education, I was determined that he would not suffer the crushing, toxic academic atmosphere that I had endured because I felt that it didn't really serve me in the long run. I wanted my son to be happy, first and foremost, and also successful. So how to strike the right balance? The difficulty started with choosing a high school for him. We went back and forth between competitive, well-known prep schools and a small, unknown school that prioritized love of learning and independent projects. I realized that either way there would be trade-offs, but in the end, I chose a small school where my son found his passion. And given that I had been an interviewer for many years for Princeton, as well as a teacher who wrote letters of recommendation and gave college essay guidance, you would think it would have been easy for me to guide my own son in his college applications, right? Not at all. So in the end, I hired a colleague to work with him. And after many months, he was admitted into an Ivy League school, but that is not what he chose. He made what some might think was a very unexpected choice. And I will tell you all about it at the end of the webinar. So what I want you to know is that I have been where you are. Although I knew the system well, when my son applied to college, I had complicated feelings. Like many parents, I was vulnerable to confusion, frustration, and fear. But I did learn something important. I discovered that my son, like all of you here today, was facing a threefold problem when applying to college. Number one, increased competition. Number two, complexity of the application process. And number three, rising cost of college. Now, what does this challenge look like in practice? So first, let's consider the competitiveness of college admissions. If you were a Texas student in the 90s and graduated in the top 20% of your class, you were automatically admitted to UT Austin. Today, you'll need to graduate in the top 6% of your class. If you were applying to Yale in the 90s, you had an 18% chance of admission. Now it's under 5%. 70% of USC applicants were admitted in the 90s, but in 2022 and certainly 2023, it's now under 12%. And maybe some of you read a recent Wall Street Journal article about a young woman with an SAT score of 1550, a GPA of 3.95, phenomenal extracurricular activities and leadership positions, who applied to top-tier schools and was admitted to none of them. There was even an article a couple of days ago on, I believe it was NBC, that was also about a student who had applied to kind of 20 top-tier schools with outstanding credentials and was only admitted to 2 of them. So there's no doubt that college admissions today is super competitive. Now, let's look at the complexity of the application process. 20 years ago, you might have applied to 1 or 2 colleges. The process was clear, simple, and straightforward. Now, because of all the many moving parts of the applications, students are applying to many more colleges, as many as 8 to 15 for our students. So there's a lot to stay on top of. And the complexity is increasing. As you probably have heard, ChatGPT and other generative AI are already impacting and will continue to impact how colleges view student essays. Admissions staff are looking for new ways to make sure that a student is who they say that they are in their writing. Additionally, in the face of the recent Supreme Court decision about affirmative action, colleges are going to have to dig deeper to understand what each student brings to the college community. At a recent meeting I attended with UCLA, University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and University of Washington admission directors, I heard that what matters most in applications in the face of these changes is actually what has always mattered: students sharing their authentic lived experience. And if their lived experience was impacted by being underrepresented, then in the essays, they can still tell that story. To give you a glimpse into the complexity, take a look at all the elements that need to be in place for students to have optimal merit scholarship and admission results. Recently, a friend of mine was telling me about the ordeal of helping his son apply to college last fall, the numbers of different essays for each college, the completely different online applications to fill in, the SAT prep, coordinating with a school to send letters of rec, different deadlines, additional applications, recommendations, and on like this. It was a ton of work for him, and it created months of tension with his son. So clearly, this complexity needs to be simplified. Now, after the complexity and competitiveness of college admissions that we have just seen, the fact is that college has gotten incredibly expensive. If you look at this graph and brace yourself, this really illustrates how the cost of college tuition has exploded. The red line here on the bottom is the rate of inflation, and as you can see, the black line on top is the rate of increase in college tuition. Clearly, college tuition has massively outpaced inflation for decades now. In 2023, private colleges can cost up to $91,000 per year, while in-state tuition for public schools can cost up to $29,000 per year. But here's the good news. Merit scholarships can be worth tens of thousands of dollars and even hundreds of thousands of dollars. So how do we do this? Here are 3 quick success stories which illustrate how we guide students to gain a competitive edge, simplify the complexity, and maximize scholarships to reduce the cost of college. So let's start with Tony. When we began working together in 10th grade, Tony had high A's and an SAT score in the 1500s. He was stellar in math, so his teachers and family were naturally pushing him toward engineering. But after talking to Tony, he made it very clear that engineering was really not what he wanted. However, and this was the game changer, he discovered that he had a significant talent and passion in art as well as STEM. And once we figured that out, we were able to match him to a local art mentor and a summer program to develop a portfolio, the very portfolio that could then be included in his applications. Exploring his interest in visual arts and combining this with his talent in math led Tony to discover a passion for architecture. And this passion made all the difference. This discovery made all the difference because it helped Tony really stand out. Why? Because now Tony had a story to tell, and nothing will make you stand out from the crowd more than having your own story that demonstrates genuine passion and growth. So to summarize, Tony discovered his passion. We simplified the application process, guiding him to a clear major and career path he loved, architecture. Tony then secured a $100,000 scholarship from Tulane, and by curating his art portfolio and targeting his essays to align with architecture and his new vision for himself, Tony found a competitive edge. He was admitted to his first choice, Rice University, and is there now majoring in architecture. So what's the takeaway for you? Think about and discover your passion. Link that passion to your profile and talents, and then make it your own unique story so you stand out from the crowd. And by the way, if you have more than one passion, we will explain to you how to link all of that together in a minute. Now, not all of us are like Tony. We don't all get straight A's. Many of us get a mixture of A's and B's. We might have a down year, get sick, or be in a competitive high school, but we're still ambitious. This was Ellen. Ellen had a B average from a competitive high school, but was confident about thriving in college. We discovered that her GPA had significantly improved over the 3 years of high school through her hard work. When she got B's, it motivated her to get tutoring, to find a college professor as a mentor, and she kept signing up for challenging classes. She also rose to a leadership position in yearbook and got a summer internship in a startup incubator to explore a major in business. But how was she going to pull all these threads together to showcase her accomplishments? Ellen worked to tell her story in a compelling way. We helped her tell her story as a journey of growth and responsibility. Ellen then demonstrated through her essays and applications how she learned from setbacks and how these setbacks led to her development and improvement. In fact, they became assets. Maybe you or your child are like Ellen. You discovered a specific passion halfway through high school, or maybe you began to excel by the end of junior year. Or maybe you're a straight A student who had a clear major in mind from the start. Either way, you may not recognize what is exceptional about you, but everybody has a powerful story to tell. You need to tell your story in a memorable way, your passions, your challenges, and your successes. So to summarize, for Ellen, she simplified the application process by keeping accountable and breaking down the long list of tasks into small steps. She submitted standout applications, and she eventually received 12 scholarship offers ranging from $20,000 to $100,000. Ellen gained a competitive edge by pulling all her academic and extracurricular experiences together into a compelling story in the essays and interviews. So, despite her GPA, she was admitted as a business major to Emory University, her first choice. So, what's the takeaway for you? We all have problems and sometimes failures. Look for the challenges and setbacks you've overcome to tell a compelling tale where you are the hero of your own story. Now, Grace's story is slightly different. She had a mixture of A's and B's, no test scores, and had a remarkable singing talent that she needed to showcase. So what was the solution to the threefold problem of college admissions for Grace? First, simplify the process by keeping her organized and on task through spreadsheets and an application tracking system. Second, We helped her keep costs down by optimizing all aspects of the applications and tailoring the college list. In her case, she was awarded scholarships ranging from $80,000 to $199,000. Third, as Grace was a singer, she gained a competitive edge by curating her vocal submissions and she helped herself, and we helped her getting admitted to the super selective Grammy summer camp. In the end, she was accepted to her first choice college, the very prestigious California Institute of the Arts, or CalArts. So what's the takeaway for you? If you have a standout talent, get in position to tell your powerful story by participating in competitions and prestigious summer programs. Make that talent the center of your applications and allow test scores to take a back seat. So the three students we discussed, Tony, Ellen, and Grace, were all success stories, but very different one from another. Yet for all of these students, they solved the problem of competitiveness, complexity, and cost of college. And through these case studies, I hope you've gotten some valuable tips on what to prioritize given your specific set of circumstances and strengths and challenges. Now, before I answer your questions, let's first answer the most common one, which is how you can work with us. There are three simple options, but first, here's our track record. For our 2023 application cycle, our average scholarship per student was $80,000. The return on investment for our families was very high, and our fees were paid for many times over. In this same application cycle, students we worked with were admitted to some of the most selective colleges in the country, including Stanford, Dartmouth, University of Pennsylvania, Johns Hopkins, as well as excellent schools such as UC San Diego, Penn State, Ohio State, Texas A&M. Best of all, these were also the right fit for each applicant. So if you want to gain a competitive edge, simplify the application process and keep costs down like the hundreds of students that we have helped. Here are the 4 simple options for working with us. So option number 1 is for 8th to 10th grade students. With a 1-year early talent development packages, we have time to identify your kids' talents, discover their passions, and make sure that they really get on track. This option also maximizes admission and scholarship results when they apply to college, and we will help optimize their GPA, test scores, extracurriculars, and summer planning. Packages start at $29.97. Option number 2 is for 11th and 12th grade. Our A-list application package, our most popular one, will give you a competitive edge, simplify the complex application process, and keep costs low. We will help optimize essays, SAT prep and testing, summer planning, as well as demonstrated interest. And in this package, you work directly with me. This package costs $12,997. Option number 3 is also for 11th and 12th grade students. And the college advisor package is the same as the A-list package, but students work with the handpicked and trained advisors that I have brought into the organization. And here it's the same content as the package, and you work one-on-one as well, and the cost of the package is $79.97. So if you're serious about working with us one-on-one, please sign up for our free discovery session and bring your questions. Students, please have both parents with you, so sign up for when they're available. And parents, please bring your spouse. Our wonderful moderator, Sydney, will drop the sign-up link in the chat now. So again, families hire us because the return on investment is very high, not only from the point of view of scholarships, but also from the point of view of acceptances. Now, before I answer your questions, I want to finish the story that I started at the beginning of the webinar about my son. And so at the end of the application process, my son did get, in fact, into an Ivy League school, but that is not what he chose. Instead, after a lot of research, investigation, deep reflection, and a visit to campus, my son chose an amazing school, Carleton College in Minnesota, which you may not have heard of, but it turns out employers, graduate schools, and prestigious fellowship boards know very well. It was by far a better choice for him than the Ivy. At Carleton, my son got more attention, classes were more targeted, his professors advocated for him. He stood out. And after his freshman year, he was awarded the Orion mission internship at NASA and a second Orion mission internship at NASA the following summer. Today, he's in grad school at an Ivy League college and tells me that in retrospect, although some disagreed with his college choice, this was absolutely the right decision for him. And best of all for me as a mom, he is happy and thriving. So, parents and students, you may be anxious right now, but I can assure you that there are many roads to success. Please remember that college is not a destination. The college application process can help you begin to discover a sense of purpose, the great first step in designing a life that has meaning for you as well as financial stability. And that's what I wish for all of you. So now let's see what questions you're asking. But right before I answer them, again, if Sydney, you would be kind enough to please drop the sign up link in the chat. For the one-on-one discovery session, students, please bring your parents, so sign up for when they can attend, and parents, if applicable, please bring your spouse. Wonderful. Okay, so now let's see what questions we are getting. So question, and please don't be shy. This is a wonderful opportunity for you to ask the questions that you are focused on for your situation. Parents, ask those questions that are uppermost in your mind. Students, you're going to be hearing a lot of noise. Be sure, from the media, from peers, from uninformed adults that really don't understand the system. This is such a great opportunity, so don't miss out on it. Okay, so first question, how can I raise my GPA even though I do not take that many AP classes? Yeah, that's a great question. So what you have touched on here is a very important fundamental aspect of college admissions. And that is, we often get asked the question, what do colleges care most about? And today in the case studies, we talked a lot about extracurriculars, right? But fundamentally, the first thing that colleges are going to look at is they're going to look at the rigor of your curriculum. In other words, how challenging are the classes that you have signed up for? Now, what's interesting about this is you really want to be sure that you are achieving a balance, because yes, you want to take challenging classes, but at the same time, you truly want to do as well as you can, right? So the idea is not to kind of pile on the APs to the point that in the end you are struggling with your GPA. Now, are there other ways to raise GPA other than taking AP classes? Well, AP classes certainly help for the high schools. If your high school gives you a GPA boost from taking AP, that can certainly be helpful. But, if you want to increase your GPA, and it says here in your question, I do not take that many AP classes. I guess my question to you is, have you decided that you're not taking any more AP classes? Is there a reason why you haven't taken AP classes? Yeah, I'd like to kind of get to know a little bit more about you. So you could put that explanation in the chat, in the Q&A, so that I can answer your question in a more targeted way. But there certainly are ways to increase your GPA. It depends on your high school. Some high schools give boosts for honors classes that are not AP. Often, if there's honors and AP, the boost is not quite as much for honors as it is for AP. But think about it this way. Some schools don't even offer AP classes at all. Some schools follow the IB curriculum, which is International Baccalaureate, and they may not even offer AP. And some schools don't offer AP simply because they have a different grading system. Your high school, just to kind of answer this question as much as I can without having all the details yet, in order to boost your GPA without AP, you could look into dual enrollment classes. See if your high school gives you a boost on that. But do think about something else, and that is the GPA has to be understood in the context of your high school. So colleges are looking at what the offerings are in your high school. And so if you want to, make sure that you're taking as rigorous classes as possible while still doing well in them, then see what the whole kind of landscape looks like. And also it depends what year you're in. So, there are many, many ways to increase GPA. And that can also mean classes you're taking over the summer if the high school includes those in the GPA. But don't get focused on GPA to the exclusion of everything else, right? As we've shown you in the case studies, sometimes it is the other things that can not only be beneficial and give you a competitive edge in terms of being strategic for college admissions, but can really help you develop in a way that will help you understand what you really want and open up opportunities for you. Okay. Dylan is asking, what extracurriculars do admission officers look at the most? Yeah, that's a good question. Rather than thinking about it that way, let me turn it around a little bit in a way that is going to be super beneficial for you. It's not so much it's not so much a formula, like, you have to do this many hours of volunteering and you have to be, president of everything and it's not so much that. It's more when you tell your story, do your choices align with who you are and what you're trying to get out of these extracurriculars? So let me explain. What we do, and certainly when we work with students, we never want you just to check off random boxes because you read somewhere on the internet that college admissions wants to see XYZ. That doesn't work. And it's also can turn the whole admissions process into an exhausting ordeal rather than a journey of self-discovery, which really it can be. So how do you do that? Well, what you do, hopefully a little bit early in high school, but if you're later in high school, that can still work. You spend some time discovering, experimenting. What kind of career or field do you want to go into, if you know? When we work with students, we give them interest and strengths assessments. Now, if you're working with us, that's great. If you're not working with us, there are these interest and strengths assessment available online. We have one that we really like, but basically to help understand what is your major, what is your kind of preferred career and all of that. Or what, if you're undecided, what are possible, like 2 or 3 possible majors and 2 or 3 possible careers. And then you use the opportunity of extracurriculars to really learn more about yourself and what you want. Now, if you know, because some students know at a very young age or very early in high school exactly what they want, then what you do is by the end of high school, you want to try to get kind of to as high a level in your extracurricular 1 or 2 that are really important to you. Let me give you an example. If you're a STEM student who's interested in biology, there are some amazing research opportunities for students. And some of them are even, the most competitive ones are even available in a way that they pay for, that you can get a scholarship. We had a student this year who ended up at the Rockefeller Institute, and it's university, Rockefeller University, very prestigious research program that's only a graduate school, but they have this high school program, and all of her expenses were paid, by the university. So there are some amazing opportunities. You want to go as deeply as you can once you've identified what you really want. That's why we talk about the 3 Ds of talent development: discovering, developing, and demonstrating your talents. Because ultimately, the colleges want to see, what could this student contribute to our college community? Now, for some students, they are going to be able to attain a very high level. For other students, it's more about use those extracurriculars to align with what is interesting to you or what you want to explore. Because then when you tell your story at the end, in the essays, in the interviews, you'll be able to say, yeah, through this experience, I learned A, B, C. Through that other experience with extracurriculars, I learned this other thing, right? Now, yes, do selective colleges want to see leadership positions? Yeah, they want to see that you went. It's just like the rigor for the classes. They want to see that you've challenged yourself. But, leadership doesn't look the same for everybody. It's, for some, it's taking a leadership position in a group, like an elected official, like class president or treasurer or something like that. But there are different kinds of leadership. There have been students, we had one student who had no time to do any extracurriculars at all because he was busy after school taking care of his sibling. He lived with a single mom, and really he had to contribute to the household. So he took care of his sibling, and he also did the cooking and the cleaning for the family. And that student was very interested in attending NYU, and we helped them prepare an essay that was all about taking care of his siblings and contributing to maintaining the household and all of that. And he was admitted, early decision to NYU. So what I'm trying to say by that is, don't feel restricted. Look at your own life and your own challenges and your own strengths, and see, and also your own goals and aspirations, and see how, what kinds of extracurriculars might help you move forward in those areas, or help you understand what the next step is for you in terms of a major or career. There are many more options than we think. If you take nothing from today except that, please do take that with you, because it's so important for young people and for parents to understand that often, yes, the admissions to schools that have admission rates that are very low is very tough. However, at the same time, there are many, many fantastic opportunities for college, and many merit scholarship opportunities. So let's widen our horizons, and let's remember that there are many paths to success. Okay, Dylan, again, how important are APs to admission officers? Yeah, so AP, again, let's widen our understanding of what they're looking for. They are looking to see if you have challenged yourself, just like that story with that I gave the case with Ellen. She was in a very, very competitive high school, and she kept challenging herself. And she even took, I remember the story because she told me her senior year, she took organic chemistry. Now, she wasn't going into chemistry, but she was genuinely interested, right? And that's a very hard class. And so she took that class, but she wanted to do better. And so she her teacher helped her, and she got a local a chemistry professor to kind of mentor her. And, she ended up doing really decently. But the point of that is that rather than saying, oh, it's got to be a certain number of APs, think about what you can do. What's your, aspire. You can set the bar high. There's nothing wrong with setting the bar high, but you want to find that balance, right? Between doing as well as you can, demonstrating rigor, and rigor means that you've challenged yourself, right? But AP is not for everybody. Not everybody does well in the AP system. There can be other ways that you challenge yourself, right? You can take, as I say, a summer course at a university and do well. You can, there's dual enrollment. But again, let's not, I'm not saying that's not important. And because I know that some high schools, they reward taking AP by boosting GPA. So it's a bit of a dance, right? You have to find that balance for yourself. Okay. Do AP or IB classes look better? Great question. So really, it doesn't matter. Right? It's not about looks better, because the AP and the IB systems are so different one from the other. Their IB, or International Baccalaureate, is all about writing. It's all about critical thinking. There's an extended essay that students write. They're doing a lot of writing. They're doing a lot of reflecting. For some kids, that's a great fit, right? Focus on fit. But for other kids, where maybe more memorization, they don't like writing, it's not, their cup of tea, AP may be a better route. So don't worry so much about which looks better. Focus more on your strengths and understanding where those lie and build on those. Okay. Question from Carrie: do you work with students looking for ROTC programs and scholarships? We have worked with students who, who are involved in ROTC and military academies. Absolutely. Question: if I'm interested in public school, not private schools, should I have a different focus on what's more important in the applications? That's interesting. Yeah. I think that it's much less about, I know the short answer is no. What all universities are trying to see what you're going to contribute to their college community. When they put together their freshman classes every year, they want each person to contribute something different, right? So if you look at the freshman class of a college each year, it's going to be kind of like a mosaic. This student is going to contribute this thing, that student is going to contribute that. The most selective colleges are looking for the Ivies, Ivy Pluses. A lot of the students getting admitted these days are students who are nationally or internationally ranked in some way. Now, that's not true for all the students that are admitted to the Ivies and Ivy Pluses. There are, recruited athletes who don't fall into that, who may fall into that category from the athletic point of view, but not necessarily academic or extracurricular. But it very much is about your lived experience and how you've challenged yourself and how you have contributed, right, to the community through your talents. That's why when I talked about the 3Ds of that talent development that we focus on when we're working with students, especially in 9th and 10th grades, but also 11th, we're talking about recognizing your strengths and then using those talents to benefit your community. Now, what is your community? It can be a lot of different things. It could be your school community. It could be your local community, geographically speaking. It could also be a community that is linked by not geography, not location, but other things. It could be, So what does that look like in practice? Well, some students use their abilities. For example, if they're gifted in math, they can use that to tutor other students. Or they can, if they're very good in coding, they might come up with an app that will benefit the community in some way. Or if they're really good with people in community organizing, they might organize an event or events to do fundraising for a certain organization that's really important to them. So when you're choosing your extracurriculars, and it's who aligned with who you are, helping you to understand where you want to go in terms of majors and careers, and then it's using your talents really to benefit the community. Because if you look at a lot of those essay topics, and a lot of what colleges are focused on is, what is this student going to add to the community here on our campus? Do colleges consider your grade performance? So if you're applying, the answer is yes, but I have to explain what that means. If you're applying early, which means generally by November 1st or November 15th, the colleges are not going to see your first semester senior year transcript until January, until after they've made their first round of decisions. Most selective colleges have final deadlines in January. And in that case, they will definitely look at first semester grades of senior year. Even if you apply early decision or early action to a school in November or mid-October, they may defer you to the next group, to the regular decision. And in that case, they will definitely look at your first semester grades. So the short answer is yes. It's just a question of when, right? And then students ask, well, what about second semester grades? Well, second semester grades will be looked at after they have reached their decision about admitting you or not. But they will check your second semester grades. We heard about, there was a student that came to us for help this year because they were admitted to UC San Diego. And then when the school got their second semester grades from senior year, they rescinded their decision. They changed their mind because the student really tanked those grades. So, take it seriously is what the answer is. That okay. What would you say are the 3 most important tips to factor in to getting accepted into an Ivy League school? So, Ivy plus, it doesn't really matter. The point is, what we're talking about here is low acceptance rate, right? So the admission rate, being what we call them lottery schools, under 30% admission, but for the Ivies and Ivy pluses, it's now under 10%, way under 10% admission. So, as I said, for these schools, everybody that applies has really good grades, generally really good scores, great letters of rec, leadership positions and extracurriculars, and all of that. So what's going to set a student apart? As I said, national or international competitions, that can be one way. There can be, for example, students who are gifted in the arts. It might be their portfolio. So what you have to think about in terms of your college list, right? Make sure you have a balanced college list. What does that mean? We divide the colleges by admission rates. And there are many colleges with admission rates above 70% that certainly, we've seen when we help students submit the best applications that they're capable of, then they get rewarded on the other end with honors colleges and great merit scholarships from those schools. So I'm not saying don't apply to the Ivies, right? I'm not saying that. I'm saying understand that now level of competition for these schools has, it's gotten to be extreme. And so there have to be kind of super distinguishing factors, as I say, like nationally ranked competitions or very strong portfolios or, something kind of outstanding that becomes kind of the hook of the application. Okay. Kaylin, yes, Common App personal essay. What tips do you have for leaving a lasting impression? So, we've seen fantastic Common App essays for students that have been admitted to great schools, ranging from, we had one student last year who's now at the University of Virginia, which, if you know, out of state, if an out of state applicant to the University of Virginia, it's as competitive, as an Ivy or Ivy Plus school. So he's there, and he wrote an essay about his best friend from elementary school and middle school, who he kind of looked down on at the beginning of high school because he wasn't, this former friend wasn't part of the cool group of kids. And then he realized that he was, losing an amazing friendship. And the whole essay is really about the story of how he then, moved from that place of looking more superficially at things to understanding the importance of this friendship and how it changed his view about what relationships, what's important to him in relationships. So that's a very simple story, right? It's nothing dramatic, but it's, it was extremely effective because it was genuine, because it was well written, but there was no gimmick. There was no, it was just from the heart. And we, of course, helped with the writing. So there's that. Then we've had other students. We had one student who's now at Stanford who wrote about a boxing match, and with a lot of very expressive language, right? And this was something that was very important to her. So, that was very effective, but it was completely different. The style was different. There were kind of short, punchier sentences. We've had other students have written essays, one who is now at Carnegie Mellon, who wrote with different chapter headings, right? And talked about different aspects of his heritage and experience that were very significant to him. So there are many, many approaches. The one thing I would say is there are certain topics that are super hard to write about in a fresh way. Those include sports, divorce, and then, be very careful when you're writing about mental health challenges. We just, we ask students to put themselves also in the place of the readers who are reading thousands and thousands of essays. And also, given that the readers are spending, roughly kind of 8 to 15 minutes reading an entire application, that means all the essays and everything. Some admission readers have said that they read the first and last sentence of essays. So grab the reader from the beginning and write about something that's meaningful to you and that truly shows something that is not visible in the rest of the application, that something that you can contribute, right, because of your strengths, and show a development, something you've learned. So make sure that the story has an arc, just like a great play or a great movie, where you can think about Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Think about it in terms of, showing growth and showing development and, showing how you are going, in some way, you're going to contribute. And that can be a very simple, like that story about the friendship, but it shows growth. And it shows an ability to be, to learn from mistakes, for example. So there are many different approaches, right? We had a few years ago a poet who wrote, a very creative essay. So, it really is very personal. But what you don't want to do is, I've said many times, the personal statement is not a place to air out your family's laundry. It's not, right? It's not a therapy session. It's a story. So think about that. Okay. And I'll say the last thing, end strong. The question was, for the Common App essay, what tips do you have for leaving a lasting impression? End strong. Okay. Yeah, so let's see. Our daughter is nervous because she doesn't know, Carrie, doesn't know what she wants to do exactly yet or what to major in, specifically a science, but not sure which. And she feels it's harder to narrow down a list of colleges to look at. Do colleges expect students to have a clear vision at this stage? Does she really need to hone in on it now? Okay, I want to reassure you, right? A lot of students apply to college undecided, but how is it that you apply undecided? You explain what your interests are and what is attracting you to these different parts of, of study and of possible careers. So you absolutely do not have to know exactly what you want. Some students, what I call the Renaissance kids, are students who have who really have talents in different areas and interests in different areas. And the idea is that now, today, there are colleges that truly prioritize these students because they're offering multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary majors to allow students to bring together their different interests. And also because now with the idea that more and more with the rise of AI, what are the job skills that are going to be important with the rise of AI, and what kinds of jobs are going to be most in demand? Well, according to the McKinsey report and the World Economic Forum, these are going to include careers where things like critical thinking and cultural intelligence, a lot of these different quote unquote soft skills, right, are going to be important. And interdisciplinary majors are amazing preparation for these jobs, for managerial jobs, for jobs that, analyst jobs in different fields, right? And of course, for tech fields, there has to be a tech, base. Some students can combine some kind of STEM with the humanities as well. So what I'm trying to say is, don't worry, but we want to be sure that that college list offers, includes colleges that are going to be very supportive of that. It's not just that tolerate people that are undecided, but actually they help students with many interests be able to bring them together. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. What should I do if I'm unsure what career or major I'm suitable or interested in? It's kind of like what we were talking about. Make sure the idea of the 3 Ds of talent development: discovering, developing, and demonstrating your talents. If you're not sure, make sure that you have opportunities to discover. That means do volunteering with nonprofits in areas that might be somehow related. Let's say you're interested in business. You might be able to volunteer with a nonprofit in a kind of clerical capacity or business related capacity that would teach you about that. We work a lot with students to help them find those opportunities. Now, there are city opportunities. For example, in Austin, there's the City of Austin internships, which students can apply to. So what I'm trying to say is make sure that your choices for extracurriculars are giving you information, feedback from the real world that's helping you make those decisions. Okay. Yes, Miyuki, how do I find such wonderful many wonderful colleges you're talking about that have generous acceptance rates? Absolutely. So the whole point of this is fit, right? When we work with students, we interview them, we help them, we give them an interest and strengths assessment. First, we have to get to know the student. If you're working on your own, take an interest and strengths assessment, try to understand, what it is that is most important for you. And, yes, there are lists of colleges. There are lists. One that I recommend is Colleges That Change Lives, CTCL. I believe it's ctcl.com, Colleges That Change Lives. Some of these colleges, they're less well known, and they can be wonderful. The other thing is some of the bigger public colleges that are very strong in certain disciplines, right, that you can find out about. Those will offer honors colleges. So if you are at the top of the applicant pool, but the admission rate is quite high, you will qualify for those honors programs. And that can be almost like a little elite college experience within a larger college. Some of those colleges will also offer generous merit scholarships. Read a book called Who Gets In and Why? Who Gets In and Why? By Jeff Salingo. He is a very well-respected journalist. I interviewed him on my podcast not too long ago, and he's written a book that explains a lot about it's a combination of admission rates and scholarship possibilities. So that could be helpful. Okay. How do we get offered scholarships? Do we have to apply to them? So there are two kinds of scholarships. There's merit scholarships that are offered by the colleges, and then you apply. Either they consider you automatically when you submit your application, or they have separate essay questions or a separate application. That's for college-sponsored scholarships. There are third-party scholarships, like organizations, like your local Rotary Club. There are so many of those, right? One good place to look is a website called GoMerry, GOMERRY. That could be a great place to start. Okay. Let's see. What role does GT play in admissions? Gifted and talented. My son studied in gifted and talented school from 5th to 10th grade in India and joined a school in Frisco ISD. Would it be any advantage? Yeah, I think that it's really more what doors that opened. What kind of higher level classes did that student have access to, and what did they complete, and how did they do? What opportunities were given for that, right? So it can be an advantage, but I think it all depends on how the student has, what kind of use the student has made of those opportunities. If it's very visible on the resume and on the transcript, then it can definitely help. Okay, so how important is early action? Great question. So a little known fact, although it's starting to become a little bit more known, is that early decision, where you commit to a school, for certain colleges can boost your chances of admission 3-4 times. That's not so true with the Ivies and Ivy Pluses, right? Even though there might be a slight boost, it's not going to make a huge difference. But let's say a school like American or Tulane, right? These schools, the admission rate plunges from ED to our regular decision. Now, early action is where you don't have to commit. What we recommend to all our students is apply early, because early action doesn't make you commit to the school, but a lot of the schools, especially public schools, they are allocating resources. That means they are giving more scholarship money to the students who apply early because it's kind of like on a first come, first serve basis. So our kids, we have them apply super early to their colleges wherever possible. Okay, well, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for attending. And I hope you found some of this information useful. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you soon. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and look forward to connecting very soon. Thank you so much.